Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. By now you all probably know me, but if not, my name is Mario. I'm a senior clinical research associate. I've been working in clinical research for 15 years. As a CRA for over 12 of those years. I put out videos on clinical research, personal finance, travel, and today's video, I'm just going to hop onto Reddit to answer some questions, probably around 5, and give you some insight into what I think about various topics in clinical research. So before I get started, I do want to take a moment to remind you to please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and also please subscribe to my channel. Also, for those of you who are wondering why I have 2 black eyes and a swollen nose, I just had surgery for a deviated nasal septum. I'm still in recovery. So again, for my efforts of trying to put out a video while in recovery from surgery, I do appreciate you subscribing to the channel and getting me to that goal, helping me get to that goal of 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2021. All right, without further ado, I am going to read these questions. Hopefully they're not terribly long, but question 1. Curious to hear some opinions about the direction of CRA jobs in the US. All right, I know from this question it's going to be about will they continue to exist, but let's see here. Hi, I'm a pretty new CRA working for a large CRO. We have a lot of remote monitors in Asia and Europe helping out with the US sites. I'm not exactly sure what they do. All right, I'll cover that. Also, with COVID, there seems to have been a shift towards more remote monitoring. My question is, where do you think the role of the traveling CRA is headed? Will it eventually become obsolete? I'm thinking the sponsors will see how much money can be saved by doing everything remotely, or even by outsourcing most of the monitoring overseas, where only a fraction of US monitors will be employed to cover what cannot be done remotely. What do you think is the outlook for this role? Sorry if this doesn't make sense. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. Thanks. All right, that was a little bit of a loaded end. What I want to do with my life. All right, let's start with the first thing. What are these remote Asia, Europe CRAs doing? Often they're what's called a central monitoring team. And now the central monitoring team serves multiple functions, but the main function of a central monitoring team is to do logic checks. And what is a logic check? So let's take blood pressure, for example. If I record a subject's blood pressure as 120/80, it makes logical sense. That's a blood pressure. It's feasible that was a real blood pressure. If I record someone's blood pressure, let's say I made an accident and wrote 1,200/800, that's not compatible with life. So that logically doesn't make any sense. So they look for things like this, inconsistencies as well. For example, maybe a subject had a headache and the database says that they took a medication, but then you go and look on the medication page and there's no medication listed. Well, one of 2 things happened. Either the subject didn't take a medication and they accidentally indicated that the subject was taking a medication, or the subject was taking a medication and they didn't enter it. So that's part of what the central monitoring team will do. They'll go to the database and see if things logically make sense. Oftentimes, they also are part of assessing risk-based monitoring. So now, if you don't know what risk-based monitoring is, risk-based monitoring usually has certain metrics that will be analyzed to figure out which sites are going to be targeted for on-site visits, which sites need 100% STV, which subjects should be monitored, where are there potential for errors, where are things possibly being done incorrectly. So that's what your central monitoring team is doing. They're trying to do a lot of this analysis to make things easier for the on-site monitors. But that brings me to, is on-site monitoring going anywhere? The answer is no. If I've learned anything in the last year and a half, it's how much easier doing things on site is. As a remote monitor, you're dealing with a lot of system access problems. For example, getting access to the electronic medical records isn't always easy. Getting source documents from sites to upload to portals isn't easy. Sites are overburdened. Oftentimes, they have to upload redacted source into an EDC system and then unredacted source into another system for monitoring. It's very cumbersome. Do I think there's a place for remote monitoring? Absolutely. And I have one example that I'll mention. I had a site located about 2 hours out of New York City, and I was based in New York City at the time. And I went there, I cleaned all their data. There was an upcoming database lock. And I think the site said the subject came back and said some of the data they reported wasn't 100% accurate. For example, a medication that they said they stopped on Tuesday, they really stopped on Thursday. They realized that. They told the site, hey, make the update. So the site updated their logs, updated the system, and of course they undid my SDV. And in making those updates, since they undid my SDV, now the site wasn't 100% SDV'd or source data verified for the visit. And I was thinking, I guess futuristically, if they just emailed me the log that I'd looked at with the updates, I could just remotely monitor it. And I was reminded that the monitoring plan did not allow for that. So instead of just what should have taken 10 minutes of the site just uploading me the log, me verifying it, and being done with that, I actually had to drive to the site 2 hours out of New York City in the middle of a snowstorm to go and look at two lines that I could have looked at remotely, and then drive 2 hours back. It was not the most efficient use of time, and I think there's a place for remote monitoring. I just don't think remote monitoring will ever completely replace on-site monitoring. I also don't think we'll have a skeleton crew of CRAs left to do on-site monitoring. There's a lot of sites, there's a lot of studies, there's a lot of indications. The chances that there won't be a high demand for CRAs is not high. They will continue to be in demand. Now, to address what to do with your life, I feel like that question would be asked by someone that's sort of new to the field. Like, should I get into this? Is it even worthwhile? And I have two suggestions. One is to watch my videos on the pros and cons of the CRA role. The other is to just try it. I found that this is the kind of job that within the first year, you either absolutely hate it or you love it. So either you'll end up like me, working in it 15 years, starting a YouTube channel about clinical research, or you'll end up like many people I know, burned out and really looking to do something else. I can think of several people over the years that have gone on to say, this is absolutely not for us, and people are happy doing other things. So that is my answer to that question. The other thing I will cover here, just so I want to mention, is that this remote monitoring versus on-site monitoring debate has been going on for a long time. There is a 2013 FDA guidance document about risk-based monitoring. So just Google 2013 FDA guidance document, risk-based monitoring, and read it. That was the start of the conversation of how everything would go remote and on-site monitoring would be reduced and not really needed. That was in 2013, and it's currently 2021. And I think come 2031, we will still be going on site. I don't think things are going to change that drastically. There will be slow change. There'll be more remote, but there will continue to be opportunities if you want to be an on-site monitor. All right, I've gone on enough about that question. Let me jump to the next one. So the next one here is going to be pros, cons, and advice. All right, this is probably builds on the previous question with a little bit of the pros and cons. Hi, hey y'all. I'm finishing my degree in clinical research administration, and I was hoping you all could touch on some of your most liked and least liked parts about working in clinical research. Also, any advice you all have for me once I finish school? All right, that was a lot of y'all's, but let me think. I don't want to just duplicate my pros and cons of the clinical research associate role video, so I'm going to make this as general as possible. Clinical research involves a few things. Do you love learning about regulations? If you don't love learning about FDA regulations, you'll never be good at clinical research. We deal with a lot of regulations. You read the ICH guidelines, GCP guidelines, FDA guidelines. You need to really love learning about regulations because to be a good CRA, you need to be on top of the regulations. The second thing is, do you enjoy dealing with minutia? Are you really detailed? Do you easily catch mistakes? If you don't enjoy that, you're not going to enjoy clinical research. Do you like working under timeline pressures, database locks, lots of deadlines, etc.? Again, if you don't enjoy doing that and working under that kind of pressure, you're probably not going to like clinical research. So who enjoys clinical research? In my mind, the clinical research is for those that enjoy regulations, enjoy minutia, enjoy doing paperwork, enjoy going and doing double checks, enjoying building relationships with sites and teams, and also working under tight deadlines. Oftentimes, you will be given very unrealistic deadlines, and you will get disappointment when you don't meet them, even though you'll say, hey, that deadline is not going to be met. It's not realistic. Can we discuss this? But just know you're going to have those kind of conversations. That's my 2 cents about the pros and cons of clinical research in general. Again, try the role for a year. If you hate it, go on to something else. Also, just know there are different roles in clinical research. You might be more attuned to one versus another. If you like to travel and go interact with sites, then becoming a clinical research associate may make sense. If you like to do more trial management, that opportunity to do trial management exists. If you love the regulation side more and dealing with IND submissions to the FDA, etc., then you can jump into doing a role in regulatory. So lots of options, but those are the common themes. Lots of regulations, lots of minutia, lots of relationship building, lots of needs to meet often unrealistic timelines. All right. So the other pro or con, depending on how you feel, is you get to learn a lot about your whatever disease area or indication you're working in. So my advice starting out, pick an indication that you like and start off with that indication. And hopefully over time, you can build and go into different things. I've spent most of my career almost solely working in oncology, but you don't have to do that. You can try different things out. All right, so pros and cons. Jump to the next question, newbie. All right, let's help out a newbie. Hello, everyone. I'm new to being a CRA and kind of overwhelmed with everything, really. Initially, I was trained to be a blind monitor. I think he means or she means a blinded monitor, but got changed to unblinded monitor the day before the first site visit. Most of my training was geared toward being a blind monitor, and now I'm anxious doing my first site visit literally a day after I was given new assignment. What should I accomplish? What should I already know? Any advice on being an unblinded monitor will be very much appreciated. Thank you. All right, let's make this quick because I don't think there's a whole lot that goes into it. The most important thing to know as the unblinded monitor is do not break the blind. Think about what you're doing. Make sure that nothing you're doing can compromise the blind of the study. For those of you who don't know what the blind of the study is, for blinded randomized studies, they have often a team that's blinded, a team that's unblinded. The two teams shouldn't mix because part of them knows what patient's getting what drug. The other side doesn't know what patient's getting what drug. It's actually, in my mind, easier to be the unblinded monitor because then you can see everything. So what should you do at your unblinded monitor visit? Well, first thing you should do when you arrive, sign the site visit log. So that should go without saying. That is, if you're going to be on site, the site visit log should just be the automatic first thing you do, so that you verify that you were there. The next thing in general, I think for this is if you're doing IP, you can probably pre-prepare if you have an IWRS, IVRS system, which shows you what subjects got what drug, etc. So print those reports or download those reports, have them handy. Look at the IP accountability log of the site. Make sure you know what subject is getting what drug and that is correct. Yes, the unblind monitor, that is your whole reason for being unblinded, is to make sure that the right thing is going to the right subjects. Look through those logs carefully, take your time. Make sure that you look at the temperature logs. Are the temperature logs showing that the drug was kept at the right temperature? Additionally, depending on how this trial is set up, you may have to deal with transport. If they're transporting from one location to a satellite location, make sure they're following their IP transfer SOPs. Also look at their IP destruction. Is it being destroyed on site? Is it being sent back to the sponsor? If it's being destroyed on site, is it being done so according to the IP destruction SOP? You want to know all of this as the unblinded monitor. It's not that different for blinded, unblinded, except that the unblinded has access to who's getting what. But those are all things you want to do as the unblinded monitor. So I would, almost in order, recommend first signing the site visit log, looking at the IP accountability logs, making sure any SOPs the site has is followed, making sure that IP is destroyed or sent back to the sponsor as per instructions, and check that the drug is stored according to the right temperature. If I didn't mention that already, that those are the key roles as the unblinded monitor. So that's that. Nothing to stress about. I have to say, once you do one visit, it should be second nature. IP accountability is not terribly difficult. All right. Getting assigned to major cities only. Oh boy. All right. Hello. I was curious if any of you knew how to get assigned to sites only in major cities, whether it's a specific company or specialty. I love the travel, but hate driving. I know this is something that will be required of me from sites far from the airport, as an Uber Lyft would be too expensive. I've heard that more experienced CRAs at CROs tend to be assigned to sites in small towns less, but I don't know how much experience I would need to have, or if this is true. Oh boy. Only major cities, if only there were a way. I do not see how you would be a traveling CRA and stick to only major cities. I think the one tiny exception is if you live in New York City, you might be kept relatively locally. But as I mentioned earlier in this video, being New York City, I had to get in a car, drive in a snowstorm for 2 hours, and then drive back for 2 hours. I doubt my company would have made an exemption, allowed me to take a Lyft and Uber there and back. It would have been like several $100s each way versus a car rental that was maybe like 50, 60 bucks for the day. So unfortunately, I cannot think of any way to be only in major cities. I also don't even see how you'd bring this up at an interview. I want to be a CRA, but I only want to go to major cities and I don't want to drive. This is the wrong field. I'm sorry. As somebody who's been an oncology CRA for 12 plus years, I have driven tons and tons and tons. I have dealt with major oncology centers in major cities, but then some of these places have satellite sites. I had to drive almost the entire state of Idaho going to all the satellite sites of the Mountain Tumor States Institute in Idaho. I drove Boise, Meridian, several other towns I don't remember. I've driven all through Kansas. I've driven all through Texas. It's just the chances that you're going to be staying in places without ever having to drive is almost nil. I would think your better bet is to become comfortable with driving if you want to do this position or to find another position. I just, I don't see this happening. I've been talking because I've been trying to think of a way. Well, maybe it's possible if, and then every time I think, no, it's not. It's really not. All right. I think the option is to do maybe site startup where you travel less, but you're still going to be sent to a site in the middle of nowhere where you're expected to drive. And oftentimes these sites are like, when I say the middle of nowhere, I mean the middle of nowhere. Like the closest airport's 3 hours away, and you're expected to drive there and back to the airport. So that's like 6 hours of driving. The good news, though, and take this with a grain of salt because I'm used to driving in like Manhattan, San Francisco, Boston. But driving in the middle of nowhere is usually pretty easy. I personally lean toward listening to local radio stations for better or worse, but you can just put on a good audiobook, podcast, whatever, and enjoy the drive. But yeah. All right. So let me move on from that because I don't think I have much more to say of any value. Probably gonna do about 2 more questions here. I'm scrolling here looking for something good. Lost in job 2. Advice, please. All right, let's see what's here. Notice that people were super helpful with another person's post about help with their job. I'm almost a month into the job as a clinical data associate. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm having difficulties with fixing queries on trials I've never worked on, difficulty keeping up with the amount of protocols. They all kind of merge together. Just overall, I feel like I'm drowning, lost, and not learning fast enough. Anytime I'm asked for things, I don't know the answer. I still don't understand the difference between an ECRF or EDC. I'm always terrified to enter in data because I'm scared to mess up. Any tips or advice or a way I can teach myself? I'd be grateful for. I want to succeed, but lately I felt like quitting might be the right move. Oh boy. All right. Let's start with the ECRF or EDC. Just ECRF is electronic case report form. That's the form that you enter your data into. EDC is the electronic data capture system. That's the overall system. So, an example of an electronic data capture form is something. An electronic data capture system is something like Inform or metadata. Um, ECRF is just a specific page. So uh, I feel kind of bad for you that you're so overwhelmed. I think what I would do is talk to your supervisor or whoever your boss is and say, can I work on one study to start with, and can I get help? Because I think the best way to learn is to learn how to do one thing well, so you're not so overwhelmed. Because it gets hard. The expectation is to jump from sponsor to sponsor. Sponsors don't use the same systems. If you don't know how to enter into one system, you're probably not going to be able to enter correctly into multiple systems. I think the best thing here is remediation. If you could find someone experienced to help you out, that would be the way to go. But I'm sorry you're having so much difficulty. I feel so bad. I guess if you want to reach out to me, look me up on LinkedIn or post here if you're if you're watching this rather, and I will try and help you out. Just know I'm a little bit too slow to respond. I'm also still recovering from surgery, but I will do my best to try to at least get you to the basics of understanding what a case report form is, understanding what data goes in where, understanding how to cross-reference source with the data systems, just knowing some of the basics. Yeah, I think what you really need is just a mentor, and it's kind of unfortunate that it sounds like the site just threw you in and said enter data. I wouldn't quit yet. I would first try to get the help that you need, and it sounds like once you get that help of understanding how to enter data, making sure it's correct, and how to enter into different systems, you should be good to go. All right, let me take on one final question here. All right, let's take on one that says Onc CRA question. So let's see here, someone that is an oncology CRA. What are the benefits of a Onc CRA? What are the usual salary ranges? All right, that wasn't a good question to end on because I have a whole video on the salary ranges. I also talk a lot about the pros and cons of a CRA in another video. So check out those 2 videos if you want to know my responses to both of those. I've pointed out in my salary videos that senior CRAs top off at 130K. That's kind of the upper threshold. That's with a lot of experience and in a desirable therapeutic area. And then the pros and cons of the Onc CRA I've touched on. If you love detail, minutia, adverse events, serious adverse events, con meds, looking at tons of detail, oncology is your field because we deal with a lot of that sort of stuff. So let me pick a better question to end on here. Sorry, still scrolling here. Right. Am I being shy or considerate? All right, let's end on this question. I work in clinical research in an academic setting and want to switch to industry pharma as soon as possible, as it seems that they pay better and pursuing career ladder there is worthwhile. It's only been a year in this junior position, trial coordinator, with many additional roles, and I could see recruiters on LinkedIn posting better paid roles of CRA startup specialist, which I could use. One of the recruiters was ready to share my CV to employer, to which I had to excuse politely. Should I be mentally comfortable approaching new employers in a year, or am I being courteous considerate for my current one given their learning is still going on? Would it look bad if I just left in the leave a project in the middle? For now, I have been working on 2 projects. Each would take about at least 3 to 4 years to complete. If not, what should be an appropriate time to switch, you think? I'm comfortable in my position. There is growth with learning, pay is just fine, not too much pressure, and I see myself as a manager in 4 to 5 years as my line manager hired me already. Okay, this is a good question to end on. Should you move into industry? My answer to this, as someone that did move into industry, is yes. Think about the move into industry. The timing doesn't really matter. What I would do to be courteous to your employer is give as much of a heads up as possible. Hey, I got a new position. I'm thinking of leaving in 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I'm happy to finish off the project I'm working on to help transition it to someone else. I just want to give you a heads up. If you can hire someone while I'm still here, I'm happy to train them. That sort of conversation. I will forewarn you. It sounds like you have a cushy gig. You think the salary is okay. You think the lifestyle is good. Your first years in industry will probably be brutal. Just be forewarned. There'll be tons of pressure, lots of learning to do, and the first 2 years can be brutal. So my honest assessment is when you're ready for something that's going to be challenging and to make that change, that's the time to make the change. I wouldn't worry about that particular project going on for 3, 4, 5 years and sticking that out because it's the right thing to do. If anything, something I will end this video on and this note is we're all replaceable. You're not the only person that can oversee that project. I'm not the only person that can monitor oncology. There are other people that can do what I do. There are other people that can do what you do. We can all be replaced. So if you enjoy what you do and you're comfortable, stick with it. If you want a new challenge, go for it. All right, so I am going to end there. I am going to remind you, if you haven't done so already, to please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm and to please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching if you stuck with me this long. In the next video, I'm going to try and break down the site initiation visit. I have some notes for a checklist I created for a site initiation visit. I did a similar one for a pre-study of site selection visit. I'll just walk you through all the things you should do at a site initiation visit. So that's something to look forward to. All right. Thank you again. And until next time, have a great day or night.